You too. Hello and greetings, everyone. Welcome to the Empowering Source podcast. This is a fantastic episode. I hope you are ready for this. I am the host, Paul Brent, and I am not only the host of this, but I'm also a Living on Purpose coach. And I have a program that helps us to live on purpose by applying the law of attraction and just live the best life you possibly can. And I am so honored here today to have a longtime association friend. I will go to that level. We have not really connected deep on personal levels. We've known each other for, I'm going to go almost 10 years in the grand scheme of things, which is really phenomenal. And we're going to make a contact connection and talk about some of those areas that we have met that we do have in common in our, what I like to call success circles. The whole purpose of this podcast is to help me connect you with inspiring leaders, positive speakers, and just people who want to have you have your best life as well. So welcome, please, to my platform here today, my special guest, my friend, Heidi Dunstan. Heidi, it is so wonderful to have you here. I've got goosebumps again already. We were talking just before we started the recording. There is so much that we have to share, and I'm so excited to prompt you with some questions that'll really keep us engaged. And I hope we don't run out of time, just in the idea that there is so much to cover. And 10 years goes by in a blink of an eye, as
Sure
does about
does.
an hour of a podcast. So thank you,
Awesome.
thank you for being here.
Thanks for having
And
me, Paul.
oh, it's so wonderful. And I want to start off with just by saying, wow, you are amazing in all of the things that I looked at here just in my preparation for notes and having information at hand to be able to say, wow, the connections that you've created, especially in the last few years, where you've gone from when I first met you way back in at the beginning of our time with Colin Sprake and the Make Your Mark program was the first time we touched base. And from there, we have mutual friends, a couple of my friends that were business associates, Tanya and Clifford Fix,
Well, they're
with
the
them.
ones that introduced us, actually, because they introduced me to Make Your Mark.
Oh, well, then there you go.
That's how far back
So
it goes,
that's
eh?
how far back, that's right. So it's just a little flip on that one because I put the two together,
Hmm.
really, and they introduced me to Make Your Mark as well. They sponsored me to be there, and I send great blessings out to them and appreciation, gratitude for everything that they've done in my life. I was in a very, very dark place, and we're going to kind of lead into that here in a little while as we talk about what you bring to the table. But they helped me become a better version of myself. They accepted me. Clifford and I were safety trainers working for different organizations, but we came together at one of them. And I used to speak about to motivate my class to engage. I would ask them the question of what is your life worth to you? What's the value of life? And Clifford was so intrigued by that that he asked me about it. And we broke it down. And from there, Clifford and Tanya, they have their own line of safety training programs, the Green Seal programs. And they were so moved by that thought of the value of life that we incorporated that into the program manual itself. And it's a lead into helping students really ponder, why do we do what we do? Because worst case scenario, you're out on the job and something happens, you slip and fall or make, it doesn't have to be on the job. It could be anywhere in life if you're not paying attention to how fast things go. Um, Tragedy can happen. And what value do you place on this moment right now? So for me, that's priceless. And I'm going to turn that back over to you in the idea of, you've got so much on the go. You're a professional businesswoman with your organization company, Summit Design. That is phenomenal. And you help put together programs like this, and you run the background scenes for so many things. And it's really just great to have you here. And believe it or not, she's actually helping me with this one too, because, we all got to spread our wings and learn a little bit. So thank you, Heidi, for your time there. Tell me a little bit about Summit Design and what you do.
Awesome. Thanks. I actually started that business almost 10 years ago, maybe even 12 years ago. Wow.
Oh,
As a virtual assistant business, and it kind of grew from there. Before I started it, I was an event manager for a number of different companies in Calgary, Alberta, and really kind of just was like, the world changed. I was working oil and gas, and I got laid off, and so I was like, I'll just do admin and some graphic design from home and see where it goes. And And then the world of COVID happened. And I mean, I was doing some online events and doing a couple little things here and there, but COVID really changed and transformed my business, where I started supporting people online and creating communities and groups online, and helping a lot of my clients who were facilitators in person, having to take their business and transform it online. And everything has kind of flourished from there. And then just before COVID, I lost my husband, and I really had to transform and really niche down and be able to expand my business so that I could be able to support myself and grow from there. So lots has changed over the years, and it's been a beautiful transformation for sure.
Well, it's, again, I can understand where you've been. I followed along with it for quite some time. And being a VA, you have such fantastic skills. I've got one myself. She's down in just a Kananaskis area there. Or, yeah, something like that. I can't remember the exact term. It's just outside of Calgary as well.
Yeah.
And she has helped me out so much. And she's also been associated with Make Your Mark, Andrea Thatcher.
Oh,
And
okay. Yeah.
yeah, so we do a lot of things, though it's not quite as extensive as what you do, and that is phenomenal because I've seen again some of the platforms that you've had your hands in, and it's such a success just knowing that you have your skills helping others. So thank you
Thank
very
you.
much for that. And again, thank you very much for being part of my day today and assisting me with that skill again. And you mentioned in your little statement there about losing your husband right around the time of all of that, which leads me into my next point that you have about leaning to grief. Uh, Tell me a little bit more about that, please.
Yeah, for sure. So after Mike passed in 2018, it was an unexpected loss. It was 2 days after Christmas, the day before my 40th birthday, and literally my life changed in a snap of a minute. Like one minute he was here, and the next minute he was gone. And I really learned in the process of grief that we are ill-equipped. We don't talk about it. We're not taught. And I had a lot of really close friends who just had no idea what to do with me after I lost my husband. And I lost those friendships, or they just completely went silent. But I also had some that just said things that were completely off the mark. And I really have transformed what I've learned in grief. And instead of supporting those going through grief, I really want to teach people what to say and not say to somebody who's grieving so we don't lose the legacies of those we've lost. And one of the ways that I tell people that is some of the best compliments that I get is when somebody tells me, I wish I got to meet your Mike.
Mhm.
And it's such a beautiful statement because it means I've carried on his legacy and that they've held space and made me feel safe enough to be able to share. And oftentimes grievers will say they don't talk about their person anymore because people don't make them feel comfortable or safe. And I would like to change that paradigm. I'd like to make it so that people do have the skills to hold space, that people do feel seen and heard, and that we release some of the judgment around grief so that we can carry on the legacies of those we've lost.
Right. And that, moves me, and I share my compassion to you for that loss.
Thank you.
I've had those things happen in the last little while, and it's an inevitable thing in life. And it's really getting close in my family, parents and things like that. I'm still blessed to have them here. However, it's getting to that age. I'm pushing 56, and it's nice to know that they're still here, but at some moment they're not. And you said, what do you say to somebody, and how do you help? What I learned from you, and that goes into, I watched an episode that you were on recently. You were a guest speaker on the Power Hour, which was really a great link and a program to watch. So many wonderful speakers sharing information around grief. It opened me up to be thinking that sometimes just being there without saying anything, just to have that knowledge, that leaning in and asking them, what can I do for you? Rather than saying, oh, don't worry, you'll get over it. It'll be fine. Move on. I also understand that we can't, or maybe that's a limiting word, but it's so difficult. And do you really want to move on? Like you said, embracing it, carrying forward, and honoring that person as to what they brought into your life. I see you bring that up so often in your posts and things like that on Facebook, and how big Mike was as a personality. I do really wish I'd have met him as well. Though, yeah, just in the way that you honor him, that is such an awesome thing. So before I get all teary-eyed on that, I want to say, blessings to you, and Mike, thank you for bringing her to the light. That's just a wonderful, wonderful thing.
Thank you. Yeah, it's one of those things where when we can actually learn how to sit and have a conversation with somebody who's hurting, we're really okay when people are good, right? You think about it. How many times do you ask somebody, "Hey, how are you?" And they lie to you. They say they're good, fine, or okay. Because in our culture, when you say that you're not good, people walk away and go, "Wish you didn't ask." Right? And so I encourage people, instead of saying, "How are you?" saying, "How's today?
Oh,
Tell me."
yeah, that's a great point. And I recognize that when I just had a very similar conversation with another individual about the social niceties and how we, will pump into somebody at work or whatever it is. And maybe if you're intuitive enough and you get the feeling, everybody puts off a vibration, and you walk up to them or you see their body language, and you're genuine concerned if you're a person with heart, and you say, "How are you today?" When I ask that question, I am completely ready to hear what you want to share, what you need to share. That's that given opportunity that we're blessed with. Here we are interacting, and what are we going to do with that? If we're just going to pass it off as a social nicety to go, "Oh, I'm fine, it's all good," but if you needed to unload and say, I had this horrible sleep, I had a dream, I had this, I stubbed my toe this morning, my foot's sore. Well, maybe there's something in that, why that connection was put together for us to have this interaction today. So that was a really great point, and I'm grateful that you brought that up, because again, it leads me into a whole line of conversation that I want to have, but I don't want to be the one monopolizing all this conversation, because you're the one that's got the knowledge really that I want to glean. And my question, other than what you've already shared, is there one real great deep nugget piece of advice, or something that you feel that should everybody know, besides embrace the idea of being able to talk about it and it is okay? Is there any little piece of
For sure. I
something?
always I have some really great tips, is that when you can actually see that grief is love, and that when you witness deep grief, you're witnessing deep love, that will help you a lot. It wouldn't hurt them if they didn't love their person, right? And if somebody has passed away, or if they've gone through a divorce, or they've lost a job, because grief isn't just about death. Know that it's about a normal response to loss or change of any kind. That when you see that they're just trying to navigate different, and that they're doing it because it hurts, and you can have a lot more grace for them. Because in our world, we don't like people to live in pain, and so we want them to get better, right?
Right,
And so we tend to say things like platitudes of, "Everything happens for a reason," or um, "Time heals all wounds. It's been 5 weeks. Are you over it yet?"
right,
Right? Well, don't worry. You're young. You can find somebody else to love, or you can have another child,
right,
get another dog. It it doesn't really work like that. And so what I encourage people to do is just see people where they're at and love
right,
them where they're at, and leave the judgments behind, because grief comes with enough self-judgment. Let me tell you, I judged myself and how I went through grief, because we think it's linear, because we're told that there's stages of grief, and nothing linear about grief. Oh,
right,
nothing. It's a hot mess. And so you could be sad one day, angry one day, grateful the next day, and sad again, and then angry again, and you have no idea. And then when somebody's on the outside looking in, and then they're judging, I believe judgment is grief's kryptonite. And as soon as we start to judge, we stop connection. And what we need is connection in grief. We need to be able to support and see people. And we may not know what to say, but I can tell you, if you say nothing at all, that silence is deafening. And
mhm,
so say, "I don't have words. I can't fix this, but you're important to me and I want to be here with you. Is there something I can do today to support you?" Which is
that's
way different than "call me if you need me."
completely. And I was just about to, sorry for interrupting on that. That statement really resonated with me. I'm here, and I don't know what to say, because, I come up with all sorts of, I've heard this before, or somebody else mentioned it, and I think that would be a great thing to pass on. Though you are different than the other individual that I was speaking with. And I don't necessarily know how to say that to you. So in just being present and honoring the fact that I'm here and to say, what can I do to help you? I don't have the right words, and I know there's nothing that I can say that will replace or relieve any of that. But I do provide, as you mentioned once upon a time in the power hour, hope. Hope that we can find a common ground to be able to share the burden of it. And you mentioned also just recently or in the last moments about how you are today. I know that concept of I'm having a tough day, law of attraction thinking, it's a tough moment, right? We're having a tough moment right now, and the day is made up of a string of moments. And if we focus on that one moment and just keep playing it over and over and over again and living from those strings, we tend to forget the rest of the art or tapestry that's out there for us. So that is really powerful. Thank you for sharing that with me. You do give me hope every day when I see what you put out there, and that's why you get all my likes and the shares that I put out and promote people to check in. It is just great that way that you have that gift and that you've embraced it and as you say, leaned into the grief. So thank you for bringing
Well,
that to the world.
thank you. I'm going to give you an example. Like you've watched like America's Got Talent when they hit the golden buzzer, right?
Hmm.
And we when they get the golden buzzer, none of them celebrate the same.
Right,
Some of them are happy, some of them cry, some of them collapse to their knees, some of them run around the stage like going crazy. And we never judge how they live through their joy.
right.
But in grief, we tend to judge how they move through pain,
Mm, that's deep.
right? And so when you can let those judgments down and just go, I see you. And I see that how you move through grief is how different than how I would, because grief's is individual with their fingerprint. It will allow you to connect with somebody. And I can tell you, Paul, the people that connected with me and that saw me in some of those hard days, uh, a year, like weeks, days, months after Mike passed, I still hold them in very, very high regard. They're very important to me
Mhm.
because they saw me at a time when in our culture, we don't like to see people in pain.
Right,
We don't know how to see them in pain.
right,
And I appreciate and have a very high regard for the courage that it took for them to go, I don't need to hand you a Kleenex. I can watch you cry right now.
right,
I don't need to tell you, please don't cry. You'll make me cry too. They just let me be
right.
and they let me not be alone. They didn't make
That
me feel bad. They didn't tell me that I should be over it by now, or why am I still wearing this, or why am I still doing that? They just let me. And that
right,
is
right,
such a big piece of, being witnessed, allowing my grief to be witnessed and allowing me to be able to say, I'm allowed to hurt right now.
right. Like holding space. I with my gift o' gab, as I call it, I have 1,000 things that pop into my head that I want to say, though being able to just stop that and silence myself and hold space, even with you right now, because I know our connection and I can see it, I can feel it. And I love you for that. And I love people that will embrace the opportunity and the love that comes with it and being able to be patient, I guess is the word that's coming to me right now, in the fact that you may be expressing things that can be hurtful. As you said, there's anger that comes with it, there's the withdrawal, there's happiness, the memories, and all those things. But in the moments when it's the hardest, when you are angry and you're lashing out and things, to know that that's not directed at an individual, right? Just because I'm the one who's in your space right now and you're expressing that does not mean that you're mad at me. And without the masks that we wear or putting myself in your situation to hold space for you with, like you say, no judgment and no offering other than that I am here and being able to say, what would you like from me? Thank you for that. That was something I needed to hear today. I'm very
Holding
grateful.
space is something that we get to do anytime during the course of our day,
Right.
right? Whether it be somebody's just had a rough day, somebody, yeah, I mean, the world is kind of needing connection more than anything.
Mhm.
And when we can go from we instead of me, the world will always be a better place. And when we can do it from a sense of without judgment and just seeing somebody and saying, "Hey, I see you,"
Right.
the world will always be better.
Boy, I can't wait to pick you a little bit more on some of these other things with
Pick
like
away.
with your VA skills and things. How's your digital creation world? You mentioned the me and we. For years, I've actually had a speaking platform that I've wanted to engage with, and one of the concepts is how we go from me to we as a classroom teacher to engage my classroom. I know that it's difficult for me at the front of the room where I'm talking about, well, I've done this and I did that and I know because I did. And if you're the recipient of that, you're like, oh, this guy's just so full of himself and he sits there talking to me. So to make it more impactful, I would to speak about we. I also discovered in there because it was not about me and talking about I flipped it and I would say, well, you need to and you need to, and this needs to because you have to. So it seemed like I was then pointing fingers at the you rather than the me, just to take it away from me. But in reality, it was the we that was connected because we and our all play together. So I have this whole sort of a display that goes from the I to the me to the we to the our or the your to the our and bringing it all back into the one. And I think it'd be a really great graphic presentation to sort of put together and have some fun with. But there are so many layers to that onion of what makes us who we are, yet our stories are different though there are the feelings and the emotions and the hurts and whatever term we want to put in there, the love, the joy, the elation, they're all there and everybody has them. We all experience them, though our story is different. And sometimes we just need to be able to let that story come out from another person and be there. And I know here I am, I'm going to wipe away the tear of joy and gladness that I have of sharing with you at this depth. Thank
Thank
you for
you.
allowing me in and thank you for bringing me to that level because it's not a sad place. And I know that it is a very, very powerful, and I'm going to go back up to the top here. It's a very empowering thing when you look at it the right way. So perspective to me is really huge. And that's another area that I bring in and I want to talk about quickly with you. Not even quickly, I'll engage for hours with you. Um, Back into the holding space, Tanya and Cliff, in our relationships, Tanya has a real gift, and she has held space for me so many times. And I've received prayers and blessings from them, and we've prayed together to be better people than we were yesterday. And that is an avenue or an onset to the conversation around how people tend to hold us back from growth by bringing up the past all the time as to, well, this is where you used to be, and this is, without any offense to anybody, now that I've said it, it sounds like an offense. The idea of, the Alcoholics Anonymous program where you're on the 12-step wheel. At some point, I mean, I totally respect it, and I love the support that the organization brings to individuals and peoples like grief counseling. But at some point, when are you allowed to say, I'm not on that wheel anymore and stop giving me the title or that handle? At the moment of growth, as we move forward, you attract what you put your mind toward. So that brings me into, the law of attraction. If we talk about all these things and we continuously go back and relate and relive the feeling that was negative at the time, how do we move forward from that?
I really think it depends on who the person is and the toolbox that they have in their, like the tools that they have in their toolbox.
Right.
Some people say to me, well, you're young, you don't need to call yourself a widow anymore. In fact, somebody was bold enough to tell me that I use it as a badge of honor. And I said, you know what? That badge of honor is love, and I'll carry that any day of the week.
Right. Stripes
Um,
everywhere.
right? And same, somebody that's moved through a 12-step program, it takes a lot of courage to go through a program like that. And if it helps them to be able to move through by saying they've got that they've got an issue with alcoholism. Some of them may not need to. Some of them might need to say, "Hey, I'm sober," and
Right.
focus on what they've achieved and continue to focus on. But some people may need to stay back there, and it isn't from my perspective to have to change that. I think everybody will do it their own way. I about a year ago was on a podcast where a woman said, I talked about judgment and grief, and she said, I just realized I watched a movie where an actress, I thought she was a terrible actress because she didn't cry when somebody had died. And she goes, but you just taught me that some people don't cry. I said, you're right. I said, I'm a sprinkler. I cry enough for two people, right?
Yeah.
But some
Yeah.
people don't. And we don't, it isn't my place to judge that. And I think when we can hold space and just love people for where they're at and what they need to be like, and understand that where they're at today may look very different than where they looked, how they are tomorrow, and just be like, hey, I see you.
Wow.
And
Wow.
it's a very different perspective. And
Right.
I was just asked this afternoon to be on a news show in the States, in South Carolina. They're like, we need to Skype you in for this one because we've had so much grief this weekend with all the big names that passed away and then the assassination attempt. And you're right, we're not equipped to deal with this. And the lady said, she goes, this isn't about the assassination. She goes, it's about the fact that a father and a wife, a father, like children and a wife lost their person. And other people are dealing with the fact that some people are critically ill, and people don't understand how to move through that. They don't understand how to support those people when all of a sudden these unexpected losses come. And we really just have to love people where we want to be loved at.
Right.
We don't like, you think about how we all moved through COVID.
Right.
We
Wow.
all grieved through COVID.
Oh, wasn't it?
We all grieved when we had lockdowns. We all grieved when we had to make decisions of vaccinations or not vaccinations.
Right.
We all grieved when we couldn't, do things the way we normally did things. We grieved that we couldn't go to the office. The grief was everywhere,
Right.
right? And then we grieved again when we had to go back to what the new normal was. Like, oh, now I got to drive back to the office. Well, I'm used to my routine with my family here, and you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
it really is, the grief is everywhere. And I tell people it's like going to the gym. You need to learn how to work your grief muscle.
Mhm.
And children teach us how to grieve all the time. You think about a 2-year-old, and when a 2-year-old loses their balloon or drops their ice cream and they cry, that's grief.
Right.
Do you just fill that void with another balloon and another ice cream, or do you talk to them about their emotion?
Right.
And when you do that with a 2-year-old, you're working your grief muscle.
Right.
Now think
And
about grief in a teenager. You take away the internet from a 14-year-old.
oh, end of the world.
Exactly.
Right.
That's grief. It looks a
Yeah.
little different than the 2-year-old, but you need to learn how to navigate some of the anger. And when you turn around and do that, instead of just filling it with the new internet code or whatever, and you say, hey, I see that you're going through a change right now. I see that this is hard for you. Can we talk about it? You will learn how to navigate some of those uncomfortable, sticky conversations. And I can tell you, even in my own world, and I'm pretty well versed at this, there will be times that you will stick your foot in your mouth.
Mhm.
You will say the wrong thing at the wrong time because you said it the day before and it worked, and the next day they're in a different state and it didn't work.
Right.
You just have to own it and apologize and say, hey, I'm
Right.
not good at this and I'm doing the best I can.
Right.
And, can I get the salt and pepper shaker to go in with the foot that I just stuck in my mouth? Like, I mean, for me, I tend to move towards humor. That's kind of my
Right.
my safe place. But be real with people, and you'll always come out ahead. And when you turn around
Right.
and see them where they're at, and you continue to learn from the conversations, you will always be better off, and the relationship will be better off.
Wow. That's profound in that idea of, being able to acknowledge it is one thing, right? If we're not being genuine, and I just did it. You brought me to that point there. I had mentioned the idea of the wheel there earlier, and you gave me a different perspective on it. And I'm at least willing to accept and change. That much I do know, because every moment, if you're not learning and growing, then you're stagnant and you're going to become this withering mess of whatever.
Exactly.
But thank you. There has been so much in that short conversation that has opened my eyes and my mind to a different place. I do walk around with my heart on my sleeve, and I was one of the first people to be able to say, not, well, not one of the first, they've been around for thousands of years. But in my world, in my family, in my relationships and meeting others, I am open. And it's actually been hard for me to learn some of the lessons. And only in the last couple of years, I have fully heard. And again, that's a tough place to be able to say. I took the time to listen and not only hear, because listening and hearing are two different skills, right? And now that I've heard you and I've listened, because I was intently listening to what you're sharing with me, the idea of being able to embrace this moment and understand that my perspective is simply one perspective. And I learned in the last little while that just because I can relate to you at a level also means I don't have to share everything I know about that. And leading into, again, I'm going to go back to the law of attraction and the power of words that we use. The idea that I can share so much so quickly my attempt to connect with you at a really deep level so that you find great value in my wisdom and experiences that I've got to share. Sometimes I don't need to share all that because words can become weapons too. And that's just as damning or damaging as nothing at all. So thank you. Thank you for bringing that out
Words
into my,
matter in grief. How
yes,
we say what we say. Lots of people say, "Hey, are you moving on?" I'll never move on from Mike.
no.
I
And
will
we
move
don't. It's
forward.
right. It's like the wall here, right? I've got a green screen, you've got green screen going on. What's behind the curtain?
Yeah.
We can repaint the wall, and there's still another layer of paint back there. We didn't change the wall, we just changed a little bit of the surrounding of it and made it a different appearance for a while. But I
And,
do
and
know
I,
that,
but avoiding statements like moving on and using statements like moving forward,
right?
different words, but they
Yeah,
matter,
completely.
right? I had,
And
my husband was a fireman for 30 years.
right,
And about 9 months after he passed, um, I had to go to a firefighters dinner to honor, the fallen fighters for the last year, that year. And I ended up sitting at a table with a fireman that he had served with and that had saw him just 10 days before he passed. And as soon as he found out who I was, he was like, and he said, "May I ask what happened?" Which is the only time I've ever received that question. Most of the time I get, and it's usually from strangers, taxi drivers, people that I meet along the way, "What was the cause of death?"
right,
And instead he said, "May I ask what happened?"
right.
Knowing full well that it had to have been tragic because he just saw him. Um, he asked for permission for me to go there.
And huge, yeah.
Very big difference. A lot of, and it's really funny. I travel a lot with my event management business. I'm on the road every 2 weeks. And so, and I look younger than I am. Um, so lots of people
You
think
look
I'm in
great.
my 30s. Thank you. And I'm not, I'm mid 40s. And so they think I'm either newly married or should be married. And they're usually shocked when they hear I'm a widow. And so I always get what's the cause, how did they die?
Right,
And these are people that have never met my husband, never met me, right? And they don't really realize that when you ask somebody that question, you're forcing them to go back to the day that that person died.
right.
I was with my husband. I did CPR on my husband, right? And I'm fine talking about it. I talk about what I do all the time, but do know that when you ask questions like that, that you could be making somebody relive a very traumatic day.
Right,
It could be a parent who walked in and found a child who just, committed suicide, died
yeah,
by suicide. And they found that. And I always tell people, like, if you were alive during 9/11, you know where you were and what you were doing when you first heard what happened during 9/11.
right,
That day was etched in your being. The day that you lose somebody, that is etched in your being. You will remember it.
right.
And so be cautious in asking people how somebody died.
Very good.
Especially if it isn't information you really need, because unless you have some magic ability to bring somebody back from the dead, you probably actually don't need to know that information.
Right. It's just that curiosity that you want to know because you want to be nosy, I guess would be the way of putting
Yeah,
it in there. Yeah.
yeah. And what I tend to do, like if I don't know somebody and I see or they're sharing that they're grieving, I get this on flights all the time, right? Because when people ask me what I do and I say I speak on grief, then I get lots of grief stories, and I never ask cause of death. I always ask, was it unexpected?
Right.
And that gives me enough information to know where they're at. Like, no, and it gives them enough information to know I'm willing to listen if they want to. They
Right.
can tell me, hey, my father had cancer and it was a long journey. Or no, we had no idea. It was a tragic accident.
Right.
Um, but it gives them the level, it gives them the power to tell me how deep they're comfortable going.
Wow. That is very, very accurate in building the bridges to conversation and in connecting with people that way. I've learned in the last few years, one of the big things
Pull your microphone out for me. Try again.
In dealing with people.
Yeah,
Is that
better.
better? Perfect. Thank you. In building the bridges of conversation, right? I've learned in the last few years as well, rather than just spilling out what is downloaded with or the information that I carry, as we engage in conversation right now, I get I see some of the stuff that you're not actually telling me, and that's fine too, right? But I've learned rather than just spilling and saying, this is what I know, and this is what I'm hearing, and this is how it's got me feeling. Do you mind if I share? Right? Just even that simple question, asking for permission, and that goes into the boardroom to anywhere that we're at in life. If you want to get something, a result there, it's asking for permission to move into that conversation rather than just forcefully placing yourself into it.
And for me, sometimes, you know, um, even the conversation we had earlier, where I had a different perspective than you, sometimes I'll just say, hey, I invite you to think about it this way.
Right.
It's
It
not me telling you to think about it this way. It's me saying, hey, this is my perspective and I honor yours. Um, and there could be a learning moment.
completely. And I wish more people were open to that concept. I know you well enough to be able to have that conversation, and neither of us would take offense to it because we know where we come from. We know that we are choosing words effectively as to not hurt intentionally, but we don't. We both know we could do that should we choose,
Yeah.
and that being able to learn from, and as I expressed very openly, I had never thought of it from that perspective. And too many times people do that they're set in their ways. They may have experienced that over and over and over again. And of course, if that's the way you think and that's what you expect to have happen, then that's what's going to happen. Uh, but being willing to be here now with openness, again, I've asked you to join me, and thank you very much. This has been so,
I'm
so
loving it.
phenomenal.
Yeah.
Um, there is so many pathways I want to go on this, and I'm definitely going to have you back for another conversation, or we're going to jump into where I'm one of the speakers there at I want to jump right onto the Blue Talks now, Corey Poirier and what you've been doing there with all those things that you talk about in your events, and it has been a phenomenal path that what I've learned from watching those with you being involved from the speaker to the behind the scenes to the people that are the other speakers, there is so much value in what has come to us now in the forced adaptation since COVID hit, when we went away from live uh, programs where I could not have been able to attend. It was just too far away. It was too much money, those sorts of things. But now here we are. We're in different provinces, different time zones to say, and it's like we're right next to each other. And this is
Yeah.
fabulous that we can do it. We don't have to write the letter and wait for 2 weeks for it to come back with a couple of Polaroids in there. Um, Whatever it is, the blessing of technology that's gotten it to us here has been phenomenal. And that links, so many of these places together with Make Your Mark and Colin Sprake. We attended the live conferences there and really got the engagement. There is nothing like a live audience. I tell you what, to feel the energy. I have a story around that. The last one that I was at with Colin, one of the big events when I met Michael Ozier. He
Yeah,
was
we were at
brought
the same
down,
one.
right? And you were there when I got the opportunity to be blessed with introducing Colin onto his stage. I reached out to the family there. Uh, wow, Clifford and Tanya were in the audience again. I said thanks to them for keeping me alive for one, and blessing me with the opportunity to be part of this bigger group, the Make Your Mark family. And then I reached out to Colin's team and I said, it would be such a great thing to be able to say thank you to him in my way, which I haven't shared with very many people. You've heard me touch on it and you watched me do it. I go from this guy that's talking right now do all of a sudden I've got the announcer that can come out and say, "Come on down," because we're having a great time. And I said to them that Gabby, I was talking to her on the phone, and I said I would love to have the opportunity to introduce Colin, and she thought it was such a weird request, and why would I want to do it? And I said, well, this is something that I do in my fun spare time. You guys knew nothing about it. I was a safety trainer, and I was there on a different purpose. However, I wanted to say I have an ability to grab energy and just motivate and light up a room. And she blessed me with 3 minutes to put it all together and say, if you can do it, then you've got it. And I was like, wow, this is awesome. So we got down to that conference, and Michael Lozier, author of The Law of Attraction, was one of the speakers going to be there giving us a workshop. And I walked into the room on that Friday morning when he was speaking, and it was just really incredible because I walked into the doorway and I was looking around. Who do I know? Who do I see? That we met at the other conferences and stuff like that. I want to go over and say hi. And I looked down the wall and here's this guy sitting over there and he's doing this thing. And I was, okay, interesting. There's, just everybody's got their thing going and I'm nice and still looking. And I got the feeling there's people coming behind me. I'm blocking the doorway, better move on. So I scooch over down the wall closer towards this gentleman sitting in the chair, and he looks up to me, and I look, and I said, "Hi there," and he said, "Hi there, nice to see you today." And I said, "Well, I was attracted to you," and we giggled about that. He kind of looked at me all weird, and it was just fun for the moment. And then I took my seat, and then I was invited to go and introduce Colin. So I stepped up onto the stage, like I said thank you. And then I read his bio and I introduced him, and we just erupted. The place was on fire, and Colin was overwhelmed. He didn't know what to say. He never knew I had that in me. And we did then his sessions and things, and he introduced. Then I took my seat in the audience. Uh, that was great too. I would just jump off the boat here for a second. Deborah Poneman was there, and a couple of the other really great speakers. And Deborah and I still stay in contact as well. So the gifts and the blessings that I received in that day are overwhelming. And I sat in the crowd then, and Colin introduced Michael, and Michael comes out onto the stage, and I'm like, wait a minute, that was him. And I said I was attracted to you, and I was doing it like a joke, but and those were the words that came to me. And all of a sudden, he's the law of attraction man. He's the go-to guy, and he's given the talk, and it seemed like every time he was speaking, and I was so engaged by what he was saying, I'm just like a kid waiting for candy. Give me some more, give me some more. This is just what I need. It was phenomenal, and he did literally, he knew by what he does, the emotion code and all the rest of his connection, he knew that that's why we were there. And it was like he would talk to the crowd and everything, and he would look and he'd see me and he'd go, right? Oh yeah. I'm there with you. And so that leads me into the next stage where over time, I that weekend, I met him in the parking lot before he was leaving the hotel, and I mentioned to him, you were phenomenal. I thank you so much for what you shared. It really resonated with me because all through my life, I've been a motivational person. I've been a DJ since I was 16. I'm going to gloat a little bit on that stuff. And I'm a communicator. I'm the power source, whether it was a school spirit pep rally, the guy with the biggest voice, the most energy that could get everybody else going. And I'm saying, you move me because I've spoken this stuff, the law of attraction and how to bring better energy into the world all my life, but I didn't quite have the words that you shared. So thank you for sharing that with me. And I intentionally threw down a challenge to him. And I said, you know, it's just a shame that speakers of your caliber don't find value in coming any further north than Prince George in British Columbia. It's like the rest of the province doesn't exist. And what do you mean by that? I said, well, it's just the way graphics and demographics all work. We're spread out communities, and there's not 100,000 people in one town or city. You know, it's actually a population of the group. And so I went home, and he called me up on the Sunday afternoon. He tracked down my phone number via Colin and their team. And he called me and said, you know, you said something to me at the hotel that I really have had in my head since. So I want to offer you an opportunity to have me come up to your area. And I will give you 1 week. Let's look into the schedule, find out when we can make that jive. And he offered me a week to come up into the Fort St. John, Dawson Creek, Northeast British Columbia area to spread around the law of attraction. And that's when I really embraced that stage in my life. And that brings me now to us as linking together in that realm. We both went through the certification process, and we are now equally law of attraction trainers. And
Yeah,
so tell
so
me,
I met Michael at the same event.
right?
And you have to keep in mind that event was 6 months after my husband died.
Oh, wow.
And so I saw Michael, and I saw Michael from, I mean, he's a phenomenal trainer.
Hmm.
But when I look at speakers, I mean, I've put thousands of speakers on stage. And
Right,
so I saw him in the lobby, and I went up to him and I said, "Hey, I want to thank you. Like, you did an amazing job today. Like, I've seen a lot of speakers, and Michael does what Michael does very well." And he was like, "Let's do an emotion code session." And I don't like bothering people.
right.
And I was like, "No, I don't want to bother you." He goes, "No, what are you dealing with right now?" And literally in like 10 days from that event, I was supposed to bury my husband's remains. So my anxiety was through the roof. And it was probably one of the first or second public events that I'd been to since my husband had passed. In terms of like my community, which is they're really hard for me to do when those first ones are always you're really raw.
Mm-hmm.
And Michael literally in the lobby of the hotel did an emotion code session on me. And the way I could describe it was I said to him, my anxiety felt like, do you remember before digital TV when the channel ran out, it went to static?
Right.
I said, my body feels like it's on static on surround sound IMAX quality.
Wow.
And under 4 minutes, he took that static away. He's like, I
Right.
can't take your grief away. He goes, but this will help you to move through some of the emotions a lot easier. And Michael and I have become friends, and he's a client of mine. I'm a client of his. Um, we communicate every week, I'd
Right.
say,
Right.
personally, professionally, all sorts of ways. Um, and the emotion code and the law of attraction, it's always been like those are just pieces that are like I see Michael before I see my doctor
Right.
when it comes to health stuff. And the law of attraction facilitator program, I mean, one of the things I that is one of my gifts is that I said to him, I said, you have this great program. I said, but everybody has an online program, and 97% of people pay for a program and they don't take the content.
Right.
I said, turn around and add a weekly live online component to hold people accountable. So they have to do the content, but then they get to meet with you and ask questions. And that's what he did. And that's how we got certified, was to be able to have that support along the way, to be able to do what we love to do. And I mean, I I attract a lot of amazing opportunities. I mean, Blue Talks, for example,
Right.
I became part of Blue Talks as an author and speaker. And when I got to an event to speak at one, I ended up doing what I do, which is run the show. And I've been on the road for the last over 2 years running their shows in Canada, the US, and the UK,
Right.
right? And it's like I've always wanted to travel, and it's never always fell into my lap. And then boom, at the right time, at the right place, with the right people, I'm actually serving people. Paul, with Blue Talks, which stands for Business Life in the Universe, everybody is, I feel like I get to actually help people make their dreams come true. I
Right.
have the coolest job on the planet.
You do. You do. Right next to mine. You know?
And so, I mean, it's a huge honor to be able to help people get on stage, help them to leverage and build their credibility so they can get on bigger stages. And that's kind of my superpower is I'm really good at brainstorming and helping people look at different situations from a different lens so that they can present themselves to the people that they need to at the time that they need to. It's
That's
such a
great.
gift. Yeah,
And it is, and that to me, it's like living on purpose, right? We get what we put our mind on, and if you're living by default because I have to go to work, or I have to do the
I
dishes
get to
today,
go to work.
right? I
Yeah.
get to go to work, I get to do the dishes because it means that I actually used them and I had food and maybe I had guests, I was able to honor all of that. There is such a perspective shift when we choose to live on purpose as opposed to playing the default game and blaming others.
Yeah.
And that was what, I really embraced when I took the law of attraction, as I mentioned, with taking the program to get certified. My reasoning behind that was to be able to honor what Michael brought to the world and being able to express his words. He's got the format, the layout, like you mentioned, it's right there, and people will walk away with usable information in under 30 minutes. Really, in grand scheme of things, you change a life just like that. As long as can I share this with you? Right? You build that bridge, you get the information going, and they buy. Yeah, I'm ready to play. I'm ready to listen, and we go from there.
But
And
what I love about Michael's program is a lot of programs they want you to do the I am statements and the vision boards and all the
right,
stuff, right? Whereas Michael's is like do this, do this, do this, and they're concrete, like it's very process driven.
yeah,
And so it's open to anybody who's willing to be open to it. There's nothing woo woo, like you don't need to have fairy dust and you know, have magical words. It's like, hey,
that's right.
first thing, reset your vibe. Stop
Yeah.
saying don't, not no.
Oh, that aren't those. Shh, you're not supposed to share that, right? The big thing that's it though, right? When we
Right?
look at the words that we use and the power that's behind them, which is one of the things that I love to speak about. Sticks and stones will break my bones, but those words, those really hurt me. And we replay that statement and we replay the word that was the one as we were talking in grief. It's the words we choose to use that change the energy around what we're having the conversation,
Yeah.
engaging and things like that. And you mentioned the emotion code. I just want to flash, papa. Uncertified, but at this point, it's something that I really engage in. I've had that energy about me as well, and I love to be able to share that one. And I want to acknowledge Michael. I spoke with him last week when I did a 15-minute session. I saw yours on LinkedIn. You had a session with him about business, removing blocks from your business and being able to charge, feeling free to have your rates reflect what your value is. I commented on
No,
yours.
the one I did was on increasing your rates in business. Because
Right,
I mean, it's one of those things where a lot of us we keep our rates the same because we're too afraid to have that conversation. And I needed to get that block released. And I can tell you, I had a conversation today with one of my clients to say, we've been working together for 2 years, and starting August 1st, your rate does need to go up. And she was
right.
like, no problem, you're worth it.
Yeah, well, that was the process of mine as well
Yeah.
in raising your rates, but I put it on being able to understand that this is my value. And I had played that game of undermining because other people charge differently, etc. And to be able to stand behind that, that was phenomenal. So I had my 15-minute session with him as well. And I encourage anybody that is going to be listening to this in our near future and in past whatever the next whatever, whoever listens to this in the grand scheme of things, contact and connect with Michael and the emotion code and grab sessions like that. Learn the law of attraction. If you put on presentations, I'd love to be part of that with you. We feed very well to each other, and we are what we make of it. The law of attraction, those words, like you said, surround yourself with your words, choose them wisely because your words create your thoughts. Your thoughts create your vibration, and your vibration creates the results that are showing up in your world. Now, we may not be able to add more positive into you. I can pump you full of the rainbows and sunshine all you want, but that's not what we need to move forward. We need to remove the negative. And so it's just changing the word use. Like you said, don't not know the three most powerful
You
words.
mean we need to focus on the positive?
Yeah, correct. Correct. See, again, being held accountable to the words that come out of your mouth, Paul.
Yeah.
That's phenomenal. And that idea of moving to where you want to go and seeing the opportunities that you're creating around you and being open to receiving them. Again, a huge, huge thing that most people have the doubt of, well, really, I couldn't do that, even if somebody asked me. but you dream about it and you have that passion burns inside of you when you walk away and you think, man, I wish I'd have said that. Then say it. What's the harm in saying it other than that someone might laugh? And if they do, oh, well, I've been laughed at before. And my dream is my dream. It may not be yours, but it's mine. So let me embrace mine. And that leads me into, from our law of attraction realm and all of those things. But wow, such a great conversation I'm having here with you. Thank you very much again, Heidi, for joining me. The circles that we run in, right? We've gone from personal connections with Tanya and Clifford into Make Your Mark with Colin Sprake, which brought us into Michael Lozier. And again, friends, not just associates in business that way. Michael, I consider a friend. We do talk. He's honored me when he came up on the trip and he made a comment about my family that is super fantastic. And I run with it all the time because he will mention it several times. Of all the people that he's met and children or youth that he's met, my boys, he just loved them. I've got twins and they're now 15. And he's like, yeah, those are good kids you got coming in there. And they have that same respect and everything, all the tools that I've been blessed with receiving. I make sure that they get it because if I knew then what I know now, wow, life would be such a different place. Though I'm extremely thankful for where I am and the circles that I run in, which leads me around into the serving circle, right? With Tyson Sharp and another place where we connected and met and have grown from there. Tyson, he and I had a conversation just last week about where do I want to be in life, and he sees my energy and he knows that I have this ability to host and meet with people and draw information out. And I can see, I'm just going to say it because I can see you're getting to that stifling point of a fatigue yawn almost because we're sharing so much and you have blessed me with such release and I'm grateful for you being here with me today. That circle from Tyson uh, brought us around again to where I am now hosting a podcast because of someone that he introduced me to. The 6 degrees of 7 degrees, 5 degrees, whatever degrees of connection that we can
Separation,
create in
yeah.
the world. Yeah. I met Payman, and Payman is the host of podcasts, podcast challenges, and teaching people how to do it. And now I understand you're part of that realm as well, learning how to put on a
Yeah, I was part
podcast.
of Serbian Circle. I probably joined Serbian Circle a couple of years ago.
Yes,
And then I had a conflict because it was always Tuesday evenings. And then lo and behold, Corey, actually Tyson reached out to me. I was kind of my conflict changed to a different day. And Tyson reached out to me that week and he was like, "Hey Heidi, how are things going?" I'm like, "Tyson, I'm so glad. I'm wondering where when Serving Circle is." And he's like, "Tuesdays." And then that's like a couple days later, I flew out to the East Coast to do the boot camp that you were on with Corey.
right,
And Corey and I were traveling and we did Blue Talks Halifax and he was like, "Oh, do you remember the Serving Circle?" I'm like, "Yeah, I just heard from Tyson." He goes, "Well, I'm going to be the featured person with my new book, The Enlightened Passenger." I'm like, "Well, then I'll definitely be there." And he was like, "Seriously?" And I'm like, "Yeah." I said, "It used to be like home. I used to go every Tuesday. It
right.
was my favorite." So I wasn't able to go last week because I was in Chicago and I won't be able to go tomorrow. But I'm hoping to get back into it. It's just at a funny time for me. Like it's kind of Tuesdays are always a bit full for me, but I do love it because the people there are just such good people. Some of my favorite people that have been there. Even one of them I met there. She was a shaman that did some work with me. And she's since passed, but I'm really close with her late husband, or her widower, um, Jan. And I just, just you meet these people, and I mean, they're all digital. The world of
Right.
COVID, I've never met them in person, but I always feel such a deep sense of connection with them.
And it is a great place. Again, thank you for Tyson for following what he was gifted to do.
Yeah, he's
and
gifted.
creating that circle. And from that, like you say, meeting with Corey and yourself and the invitations that you share out. And every time I see an invitation from you that says, join me on this, I'm going to be there.
Oh, thank
There,
you.
there is such value
Well, I
in
can
what,
tell you, I just had a conversation with Mr. Colin Sprake this morning. And so I'm hoping something exciting is going to come forth that you'll get to
good.
join us with.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you remember me and what I bring to the table. I'm there for sure. And through that connection you were talking about with um, Tyson and Corey on your Blue Talks, and he was on the road promoting the Enlightened Passenger. I do have my own copy of that book. I just recently got it in the mail. I started thumbing through it. I didn't get a chance to read it because I went off and did the announcing at the racetrack this weekend. However, I looked at it this morning and I almost started reading it, but I said, no, I need to do my homework with you just to make sure that I've got everything lined up.
Oh, you want to read
And
that book? It's 100 pages of goodness.
yeah, it's goodness, and it's only 100 pages, and that's, I mean, I know I'm going to reread it a couple of times because I've also read the other program, the Celestine Prophecies. That's not his book, but it's that same idea that it just an enlightened thought of where you're at and putting focus on your mind and the opportunities are around us, and if you're listening to other people correctly, everything's there, right?
You know,
So,
it's a fictional parable, and it's a fictional parable of Corey's life. And Corey has interviewed 7,500 thought leaders in his career so far, and he's taken the top 10 life lessons from those thought leaders and made it part of this story.
right,
And I was honored to be one of the beta readers. And yeah, I'm so proud of him for being able to do this. It's a real honor to be able to support him behind the scenes. There's lots that has gone on behind the scenes since that book launched and pre-launched and now has launched. It's out for good now, and
right.
it's exciting to see what he's got coming next. So
Yeah, that
do have the sit down, and it's honestly like I tell people, I'm like, I've already ordered like 6 copies of this book. I've given it away so many times because I think it's a book that needs to be in lots of people's hands.
exactly, exactly. And that was where, this whole around Corey comes in. Talking with Tyson and yourself and then your invitation to be a part of that. And I got my copy. I didn't read it yet. I will read it tonight. That's probably what's going to put me to sleep, or I mean that in a nice way. My bedtime read. Then Corey, we connected actually during that with Tyson.
Different
Yeah,
serving circle, yeah.
yeah, during the serving circle. And not only did he reached out to me, and I thought that, wow, that was incredible, because normally it would be the other way around. I'd be fishing and doing my law of attraction. I want to have you in my world, but he connected with me, and that was just a phenomenal thing for me to have. And he sent me some information about the Blue Talks and things like that too. So I'm really excited to see where this goes. It's just so much opportunity.
Yeah.
And it's again, we can carry on and talk about all these circles that we are connected in, and I want to save some of that for our next opportunity to get together because we can go on for hours and people are going to be just like, wow, give us more, give us more.
That's
It's
right.
like a good drug, and I like that part with you. And what what drives your success? Just a question, it's sort of out there, but it's one that burns me, and I want to know what drives you to keep going and seeking these things out.
So I don't know that you're a part of these circles, but the circles that I actually met Tanya and Clifford in was a personal development program. And in that personal development program was also where I met my husband, Mike. But we
Is
get to
it
actually go through a process where we create a contract, which is something you want more of in your life, and you put words to your purpose. And many of us struggle to put words to our purpose,
Mhm.
but when you actually go through the exercise, it's a pretty powerful process. So my
Is that the
contract is I'm a beautiful woman of grace.
okay?
And I want more of that. I want more to be able to see the beautiful sides of me. And I definitely need to be very graceful with myself. But my purpose is I inspire others to live authentically. And
Right,
um, and when I get to do that, that is when I'm successful. And success to me isn't how much money I make. Success to me is how I make a difference in people's lives and how I show up. And I always tell people, because I used to be a really big people pleaser, Paul, and now I please the masses. I don't please everybody.
right,
And so, the people that go, hey, I connect with you or you drive with me. And then the others that don't, I'm like, hey, sorry, I'm not your people. And,
right.
and there's somebody else out there that's supposed to inspire you. But when I get to see people make their dreams come true, when I get to see them succeed, when I get to see them reach their goals, I love it. And there are times that I'm on sales calls and I know that that person is going to buy something, but I'm like, hey, this would benefit you, or could you try doing this, or I invite you to do this and circle back with me. And they're like, yeah, but I'm not buying your product. I'm like, I don't need you to buy the product. I said, I need to see you succeed.
Right.
And it's like they send me their stuff. Like sometimes they'll do something on their website. I'll tell them to make one change on their website. And I feel like I don't have kids, but I feel like a mom where I want to print it and put it in the fridge and be like so proud of them because I know how much courage it takes to make all those changes as a business owner. And I just, that stuff fills me, that fuels me. And guess what? Every time I see it, I want more of it. So
Right.
I'm always encouraging people to do something different and step outside. And it's not like they have to, like, they're not going to be sitting in their poopy pants, but just enough to be able to, like, hey, can you do this? And they're
Poopy
like, I
pants.
can do that. Right? Like,
I haven't heard that for a while. Collins Brick, you'll be donated your poopy pants. Just
yeah,
do it though.
yeah, exactly. Right.
Right?
But it's really about, I love watching people succeed. And when they're succeeding, I'm succeeding
Right. Well,
because I'm
that's
living
great.
authentically.
And that's it, right? Living on purpose, living authentically. And I same boat. Let's row. You choose a side, I'll choose a side. We'll row together. And as long as we're all heading in that direction of
And
success,
if we're rowing in a circle, as long as we're laughing, I'm having a blast.
yeah, woohoo! We're having fun,
Right.
right? That's right. It's okay to get a
Yeah,
little bit of water on you too, because it'll cool you off on a hot day like today. That's for sure.
that's right.
I know I asked you last week a little bit about this and the idea, and you sent me some information, and I'm just going to sort of burst the bubble and have a little bit of fun. Next stage in my opportunities here, as I was putting together my podcast and we're putting out media releases and things about who's going to be on our shows, and I had an opportunity to speak with some local radio personality, and I was offered, if I can put it all together, or shall I rephrase that and say, when I put it all together, the opportunity to host my own 1 hour program. And I'm going to take little snippets of our conversation, the what motivates you or whatever I found extremely valuable insights as I've shared. I've learned from you so much today. Thank you for being so open, and your integrity is so strong that I know there not only was value in having you here, but the way that you've helped me in my life already. You have so much to offer, and I look forward to
Thank you.
sharing that with other people through this now radio program. But I also want to make sure that it's not just a talk radio, because I like radio for the fact that there's music, and I know that music moves us all. There's a rhythm and a beat to nature, or whatever, however they want to phrase it. Being the DJ for years, I know I've got my playlist, and I know I'm pretty sure that you've got yours, and you also sent me some of those songs. So give me one of your top right now. Let's share that. Whoops, getting my speaker over here. What is your one of your top three? I'm not going to make you list a whole bunch. One of your top three. You get up in the morning and you go. What would be a song that you put on, sort of a go-to,
The Power Hour show, when you meet Sinette, you have to give her your song.
right?
And you dance to it when you meet with her one-on-one.
Right?
And I don't know if you know me very well, but I'm not a big dancer. Not my jam. But I can tell you the song I gave her was The Road Less Traveled. And
Okay.
that song is more than a song to me. That feels like my anthem. It really talks about traveling a road that most people don't, building your confidence, like not being identified by your pant size, and having faith in the one above, whoever that is for
For
you.
you.
And it really is. And Sinette actually added that song to her playlist. She was like, I've never
Wow.
heard this song before. And I can tell you that when that song comes on in my earbuds, I walk differently. I hold my head up differently. It is my anthem. And I do believe that I have been chosen to live a road that is less traveled, but it
Right.
means that I get to have some big impact.
Good. Good. Thank you. I relate to that. As far as really sitting down and saying what my top song is, that's great that you can do that, because there's so many that I draw from, and it, in a sense, depends on which mood I'm in at the time that I need to alter by choosing the song. My son pointed out to me the other day, what was it? They called it the meme there on Facebook or TikTok or something he was watching. And he said, you know, it's kind of funny that your alarm song, the one that wakes you up in the morning, is like the soundtrack to your life. It's what kicks you off. So do you have a song that plays, or do you just have to wake up time?
It's a one of those preset ones, but it is somebody. I was sharing a hotel room with somebody recently, and they're like, "Your alarm is actually quite happy." I was
Oh,
like,
good.
"Well, yeah, like it's just a happy little
Yeah.
chimey thing," and
Okay,
um,
okay, excellent.
yeah,
Okay.
um,
I have what's called the morning strum on my. I use my phone for my alarm clock, and it's just a little guitar plays, and it gently raises the sound until it gets, and then I have it voiced in there says, "Good morning, world." Right, so it's really fun, and
that's cool.
I usually I wake up just as the light comes on. I'm kind of funny that way. I hear really insignificant or sounds that energy connected, let's go with. So as soon as that phone comes on, the light comes on, it's the energy of it's coming at me. And I'm reaching for the phone before it gets too loud because I don't want to disturb my wife. Not that it's going to wake her up. But she says, "How in the heck do you hear that?" I said, I'm excited about every day and I just want to get out here and go. And what can I do to make it better for me? For one, that's always my priority. How am I going to have a better day? But how am I going to be there to show up and share with other people? And much like you, that's again why we're here, why we're connected, all part of these circles that we run in. It is so fabulous, so fabulous. I'm going to say thank you 1,000 times over, my friend. You
Thank you,
know,
my friend. It was nice to connect with you.
you are a blessing to so many people. Me specifically, I'm going to say that as well. You are a blessing to me and the circles that we run in. It is a genuine pleasure to have you part of my world and part of those circles. And I do offer myself, if there's ever anything, you just reach out and you know that I'm there with you and we'll climb that mountain together.
Thank you, Paul. You're a
Okay,
gift.
so thank you so much for living on purpose, living your life. And I do encourage you, if you know of anybody or as you said, we may not always resonate with the person that's in front of us, but maybe there's someone else that you know. And if they need help living on purpose, that's just a different take on what we're saying. I invite you to share everything that I offer to them as well. And as you guys can see that, which did I point the wrong way now? Living on
Okay.
purpose here with me as a one-on-one coach. I also open up to group speaking and things like that. Reach out to me at pauldbrent.com and join in the fun. And if you're so motivated to send somebody else our way here, I'm always looking for guests on the enlightened, empowering source here on the podcast who will enlighten a few other people with the information that we share. So thank you so much for joining me today, Heidi. Again, blessings to you and everything that you do, and I hope everything comes back to you 100,000-fold, not just 100-fold, but overwhelm you with all the joy and the greatness that is yours to own. So
Thank you.
thank you for
Same to
being
you,
here
Paul.
today.
It's an
Thank
honor.
you. Take care.
Bye.